Welcome to the regular scheduled board meeting of Pocahontas School District. I'll open up for Dr. Arbuckle.
Appreciate everybody's time this evening. We did not have anyone sign up for public comments. Is that correct, Adley? So we can move right on to Section 3, approval of minutes. So you have in your packet the minutes from the regular meeting in September, the budget session at the end of September, the work session from October 6th, and the special meeting that was held that night as well. If there's any questions about the minutes, be glad to answer any of those. If not, we would just need a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes from the past meetings. Everybody in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Now, I will say we may need to, Abby's keeping the minutes over there, so she may not be able to hear us. So that was Chris and Jennifer. Okay, got it. All right, so we have our first report, Section 4. So we're going to have our first report to the public from the junior high. So that's Ms. Miller. If you want to come up, and the board does have a copy of the presentation in your packet. It begins on page 19.
I said I was going to keep it short last time, and then they said that everybody made fun of me that I didn't keep it short. So I'm going to make it really short.
Yeah, Christian was an hour and a half.
He just likes to hear himself talk. So I'm just excited that I actually kind of know what I'm doing this year to present this to you guys. As far as my year 2 here at the junior high, but I just tried to highlight the main things at the junior high. Our vision at the junior high is to prepare students for current and future success. We believe students are given a safe environment to learn, high quality instruction is provided to every learner, positive and professional relationships exist between students, families, and the community. Our record of enrollment I have from fall 2023, 2024, and 2025. You can see we dipped down in fall 2024, but we are up a few students in 2025 so far. We definitely feel it in this building this year. It feels a little bit more full. It's maybe one extra class, but as far as based on last year, but we fill the numbers. But total, we have 456 students in our building. You can see our demographic data. I'm not gonna read it all to you if that's okay with y'all. But if you do have questions along the way, please stop me to ask. And then we have our Atlas information. I would say that junior high has a lot of room to grow in a lot of areas to grow in our Atlas data, and we're looking at that very, very closely in our collaborative team meetings and working to see ways that we can strengthen and bulk up these ELA science and math scores.
So the dark green is they're at level and the blue's above and everything else is below, correct?
Correct, yeah. They do it as level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. So level 4 is that blue, the yellow would be the level 1.
The light green, the way they articulate the light green is they're almost at grade level. Like they're at grade level with some help.
So the dark green is grade level.
Right.
Okay.
Does it specify like what kind of help we're referring to that group? Like is it just like more time to take tests? Is it a reading deficiency? Is it...
Looks like we're kind of a uniform all through.
So the short answer to your question is no, that it doesn't. It just It basically just gives you an idea of where they're scoring at.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And then the idea behind that is that you would then combine that with other data like the Atlas interims or the iReady, and kind of parse out, pick apart where are those kids really at and what kind of supports do they need.
and Atlas does provide data that breaks it down a lot deeper. It gets more into the weeds of it to where we can kind of see those strands that the students are low in, where we need to focus, and that's where we as the teacher teams are getting together and looking more closely at what those areas of need are, where those gaps are, and how we can bring that up through intervention or just during class time instruction.
And we do get that on every individual student, right? Not just the summative data?
Yeah, so in essence, the nice thing about the Atlas data is that whether it's the summative or the interims, the information is reported out on what I'm going to call key standards, right? So the key standards in the summative are the same as the key standards in the interim. And so what Bethany's really talking about there is they're taking apart and they're looking at the key standards in 7th grade and what do we need to do better? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what do we need to do more strategically? What do we need to do better to ensure that kiddos are learning that? And the key is we're doing the same thing in 3rd grade, right? Because the standards, the key standards are kind of a thread that are pulled through all of those grade levels. And so the idea is if we're all doing that same work across 4 buildings, then over time we should see some benefit to that collaborative teaming across all levels.
So are we doing anything specific to target these kids that were a level 1 and 2?
Yes, so we have red skin time actually, it's gonna come up in those later, that we have dedicated 3 days a week. I think we're gonna push it to 4 days a week. It's during our 2nd period. We stretched our time, we just kind of rearranged things, and so now we have a red skin time that's between 25 and 30 minutes. And we're working to get those, mainly those level 1s that really need that push to grow. We are working on getting them into small groups to work directly with teachers on those specific skills that they need during that time. And then students that aren't maybe on level 1, they might be working on the iReady lessons that'll still target those areas that they can improve on, but they may not need as much direct instruction, explicit instruction as these level 1s do.
Okay.
So if they're identified as level 1 or 2, that is mandatory during red skin time, yes? Like that's not just like free time, they can choose to do it, they have to do it.
Yes, they are assigned to specific locations. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Do you have enough resources to handle it?
We are working creatively on that. I think that we could always have more people to, I mean, in an ideal world, if we could have more people, instructors to be able to work on those things as far as time. We may look more into some evidence-based resources for these later, but at this time, I feel like the key is just to get back to the basics right now is what we need to do in order to see some improvement. Is just simply some of the things that we've been discussing as teachers is just, using that common language that is within the content that students are going to see when they're taking those tests. Sometimes they can simply get a question wrong because maybe they haven't heard it worded exactly like that before. And so those are some things, the challenges that we're going to try to overcome, that maybe we're just not showing what they know, and they know more than what we're saying. So right now, we're just going back to the basics. We're just gonna be taking steps back to meet the kids where they are. But that may be a conversation down the road. Moving a couple of slides over, I am very excited. We're offering a lot more courses for our 7th and 8th graders especially, but also 9th graders this year. We've added East, which I know all of you most of you got to come and see the East room and kind of see what that's all about. We've had some great projects going through with that, lots of great ideas. I think that's going to be a long-term thing that we see good things coming out of. I think it's great for these kiddos that maybe don't know what their niche is yet, but this gives them a way to explore and say maybe technology is where my interest is, or maybe I want to look into photography or videography or podcast or whatever. So I feel like it does give kids the opportunity to see more offerings than what we have had previously. In our band and music area, we added a 7th and 8th grade jazz band, and we also added a 7th and 8th grade percussion. We've had 9th through 12th jazz band, but we were able to offer up 7th and 8th graders to get into that as well if they have that interest in jazz or percussion. And then I think one of the most exciting has been weightlifting that we've incorporated this year. We've had a lot of interest with our students, athletes and non-athletes alike, who have started the weightlifting course, and they seem to be really enjoying that. We have added an 8th grade agriculture elective. It's called Intro to World Agriculture, and it's that pre-intro to ag where they get to kind of see the different paths that you can take in the world of agriculture. We also have iReady Learning Lab, which is really where we've shifted from just a study hall period where students just kind of work on what they need to work on, and we've scheduled the students into that so that they can actually have lessons that will benefit them to improve their learning. And so all of our 7th graders actually get a full 9 weeks rotation of that. And then 8th and 9th graders can take it as an elective. We've actually had a few kids who have switched mid-year, say maybe they quit football, for example, and they need somewhere to go, and we kind of started looking, and they had some deficits in their learning, and since they had an extra space for that, we were able to put them in an iReady lab, and they're able to work on building up those deficits.
So this goes back to the questions you guys were just asking about, like, how are we addressing those kiddos? Not only the Redskin time, the 20 or 25 minutes, 3 days a week, but now you have a dedicated, 45, 50-minute time period every single day where those kids are reinforcing that skill set that they should be, mastering already to begin with.
I guess my question is, while they're in this Redskin time or already or whatever they're in, are they focusing on what they're currently learning, or are they focusing on standardized testing?
So the iReady lessons it takes their diagnostic test that they take, and it just sort of finds those weak areas for that specific student. Mm-hmm. So each student is individualized on it. As far as during Redskin time, some of the teachers that are doing the explicit instruction piece are looking at, okay, we're really seeing the gap in this specific skill or standard, and so I'm gonna pull these kids and we're gonna work on that. So it is more targeted to what they're doing maybe in class or something that they're gonna build on. But then this computerized piece is more catered to what you need.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does, I didn't want us to draw so much attention to the test and lose the attention
Correct.
of what we're doing now.
Correct.
Both of these, what I think you're hearing her say is both of these are focused on the standards and the skills, not the test. Now, if they master the standards and they master the skills, they should be able to produce on the test.
Right.
But it's different than having them sit down and take like a practice atlas test. We are not
Yeah,
doing
it-
that.
Okay, that's, I
It's
just
not,
wanted, okay.
Yeah.
it doesn't look like that. Now, we have had conversations about, you know, on how do the wording of assessments, and that's what I was talking about earlier, how the wording on an assessment can kind of get our kids trained for that, but it's more based on their skill set that they need. And it's, like you said, it's based on the standards.
Do you know how many students are in the Intro to Agriculture?
Not off the top of my head.
Do you know how many sections we have?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you remember how many sections we have?
We have one of the 8th grade.
Okay.
Just one section of the 8th grade. We could look into expanding that, but since this was our first year, we offered it as one, and just to kind of see how it goes. But I mean, we have I'd say 15 to 20 kids, but don't hold me to that. I can get that information to you later.
No problem.
Yeah. And then we also have hands-on art history. Our teacher, Ms. Shelton, has been very excited to bring in the which, you know, I'm like, well, art is hands-on, but it's more on the art history side where students are learning about the historical side of art and then actually getting their hands into creating things that are inspired by that historical time period or person in history. Any other questions about that? So we do have Redskin time, and I feel like I've kind of already explained it, but part of that time that we have for Redskin time is the intervention piece that I was talking to you guys about, but we also have what we're calling an advisory time. And that's something that is new this year, to where students have the same advisor and they see their advisor twice a week. And they go into a classroom in a small group setting. We have about 13 to 15 kids in each advisory group. And that is where they look at things like attendance, they check their grades. That's where they've been taught how to get on Hack and look at their grades, to make goals, to look at if they could be exempt for semester tests later on in the school year. That's also a time when their advisor uses our new Capturing Kids' Hearts program to emphasize some of the social and emotional strategies and different things in there. So it's just an opportunity for the kids to go somewhere and have a designated adult that's checking in on them twice a week. My goal is that they're going to loop with the same advisor the 3 years that they are here in the junior high, and this will be the same person who helps them schedule their classes. The idea is if an advisor gets to know them through 7th and 8th grade, when it's the end of the 8th grade year and they're working on picking those pathways and looking at those electives and different things, these teachers are going to really know them and be able to help push them and guide them and direct them in the right way. It also gives them the opportunity to discuss, hey, I see that you have some work not turned in. What's going on over here? And just being able to have that accountability piece with someone. So that's what our Redskin time is made up of, is advisory and then the intervention piece, which we call win time, what I mean. We've been working on safety and preparedness. That's an area that East has really been working to help get involved with things like getting AED signs, pointing the direction where we have AEDs in different buildings. Bus maps so that the kids can see the order of where the buses are located. We did, for the first time this year, the school evacuation and reunification drill. I will tell you guys that I was very nervous to take 456 7th through 9th graders from here to Black River and go through that whole process, and they blew us away with how well it went, how cooperative the students were, how respectful the students were, and I feel like we represented our school well as we were over there doing that drill. We've been working on getting communication in every classroom. I don't know if you'll know this or not, but a couple times last year our electricity was out for a few hours. So we've been really taking those incidents when that happened and trying to plan for, okay, if we are in a situation where our intercoms are out or our phones aren't working, or how can we communicate? So we have been working on that. All of our teachers have radios in their rooms now. We have a channel that we can use as needed, and that gives us a second layer of communication. Collaborative teams is something that we are really honing in on this year at junior high, I think as well as the district, but we are dedicating weekly time to get together as departments. We have ELA getting together, English Language Arts, math getting together, science. We're trying to get the different groups together at least monthly, just to look at those areas of needs for our students and look at how we can work together. One of the big conversations that we've had is that these are all our students, even though we have a roster that has certain names on them. There's so much meaning in working together and collaborating with all the strengths that the different teachers have. So we are trying to get together more to just strengthen our instruction, strengthen our areas of need for students.
What does that look like when you have, I guess my question is, when I went to the school board training 2 years ago, one of the schools, I can't remember which one, was talking about how they had kind of piloted where they had a lot of new teachers and they partnered them with seasoned teachers and made sure that they had somebody to go through, kind of like as a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the junior high has most of the newest teachers. So are we supporting them, or what are we?
We are. We have with every single, we call them novice teachers, their first 3 years within teaching. We provide them with a mentor who has certain things that they work with them to develop them on. But yes, it does get interesting when we're trying to buddy people up, because there are some departments where we're almost all new. But we're just leaning into how can we take the new ideas with some of the things that do work, and it's interesting to kind of hear everybody's perspective on that. think that that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany. Appreciate it.
Do y'all have any more questions for me? I'm sorry.
No, I wrote questions down for Christian as you were talking.
So I was like, oh, this could be a Christian question. Thank you.
All right, Christian, you're up.
Somebody set the time.
Yep. What do you want? I'll make it happen. So, good evening. We're going to get up here and talk about the high school. We're going to get the presentation in front of you. Of course, we start off with our mission during the day for tomorrow, and we plan to do that through collaboration, caring, and effective teaching about the curriculum and activities and accountability. And our goal is to become a leading higher liability school in the state, but just creating that well-rounded individual that's ready for life, whatever that may look like after high school. As far as our goals, we have a goal every student will have a student success plan. This student is small, work very diligently to make sure that's taken care of. All students will take the interim test throughout the year for the Atlas, those who are eligible. All students will work towards improving their reading and math skills, as you'll see in our math section of the Atlas scores. That's a big thing for me as a former math teacher. On-site learning will be provided, and the goal is to provide a culture that's positive, safe, accountable, and for learning. And that goes hand in hand with our capturing kids' hearts. We've got our enrollment numbers there, and so we are sitting at 399 this year. If you look, we have a very small senior class, but I think it's only 8 less than last year, so we're sitting at 407 at this point. So pretty comparable, and then we're at 384 at this time in the year 23-24. And so we're up a little bit, but we're staying right around where we kind of have been. Demographics on the next page.
Real quick.
Sorry.
What's the 9th grade class? Isn't that a big class that's coming out next year?
Let me go look at it
That
here.
11th grade class was the largest class, but now they've averaged out.
Well,
Yeah.
9th grade.
135.
It's about
Yeah.
normal.
How much?
145.
So that'll put you what next year?
If when they come up or when they do, let's see, that's 45 more, so
Yeah.
about 430, 445, just depends on what happens between.
I would like to just point out at this point, we're talking about numbers, the graduating class of 74. So all these recent class reunions that we've had over the past years, their graduating numbers are very average we're consistent. Mine was 112 and that was 25 years ago. So while we say we're dropping numbers, we really are staying the same when it comes to graduation numbers.
Yeah.
We're not going to ask Gary has graduated.
Yeah, Gary. Well, how long ago? How long ago, Gary?
What was
Back to you, Christian.
So demographics on the next slide there, you guys can look through that. It's pretty similar to the other buildings as far as that goes. As far as our state testing, 10th grade we have our Atlas that we have with those students. 11th grade our ACT, and 12th grade still the Word Keys test. On the next slide there, you'll see our ACT scores, and so down at the bottom you'll see 2025. I don't have all the parentheses there, the state averages for that test that all the kids took at the same time that are received through the schools. I couldn't find that data on the state website. It said it was still coming soon, and so I wasn't able to provide that, but we did find the average. And so if you look there at the end, our average was an 18, the state average was an 18.5, but we did increase by 0.6 points there on that. We did go up pretty good in the English and reading sections, about 1.4, 1.2 on those, and so we're proud for those. So on the next slide there, we have our AP scores. Miss Vickery wanted me to especially point out she had a 90% pass rate, but not because it's a 90%, but because she had 10 kids in there. So, she says, don't expect that every year. It'll change a little bit from time to time. So, but we did have 57 different students score a 3 or higher on the AP tests last year, and I thought that was phenomenal because, it's a great group of kids. We had a 41% pass rate, which is a drastic increase from years past, and so just a testament to the work that those teachers are putting in to make our kids successful. On the next slide there, we have our biology atlas data. And so, as you can see, we stay pretty consistent with the state. We dipped a little bit there, but that is a different cohort of students that come to us every year. And there's not a 9th grade science assessment for the Atlas. And so we don't really have kind of a comparison there between how they did at 9th grade and 8th grade, and then it skips to biology in 10th grade. We did something really cool. Last week, we had a science vertical alignment, and so we got our teachers 6th through 12th grade together and kind of went through the achievement level descriptors for the atlas for biology and the different tests in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and just kind of had a comparison and said, okay, where are we teaching what and when, and where are we hitting our standards, and where can we help each other achieve the end goal, which is, of course, you know, the formula on those assessments and to make our kids successful. And so we had a very good meeting with those teachers. It was very, very productive. Geometry data on the next slide there. Again, as a former math teacher, I can't say that I'm proud of our numbers on that, but we do have a new curriculum that we purchased, and so we're hoping that helps provide tools for our teachers to help make our kids more successful, and that kind of drives a lot of our discussions in our PLCs about what we can do and how we can improve in those practices. And so those have been the discussions that we've been having thus far, and I'm excited to see kind of how our curriculum is going to help, but also, you know, what our PLC process is kind of helping.
So here's a question I have in the math stuff, and I've had a problem with this even back before I was a board member. I don't understand, because even back when I went to school, which was well over 25 years ago now, kids aren't allowed with their math class that's back to where they have to take algebra 2 and geometry in the same year. And I don't understand why we don't. I mean, when I was that age, we did pre-algebra in 7th grade, algebra 1 and 8, algebra 2 and 9. Because algebra 2 and geometry, to me, especially for kids who struggle with math, you're just asking for the death wall.
Two totally different.
You know, and these are opposite ends of the spectrum as far as math goes.
Right.
And so if they're struggling in one class, you know, it's like they can focus on this one, but they're going to struggle on the other one, or vice versa. So what can we do to get away from that? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
One thing we've talked about a little bit is acceleration, you know, as far as getting back to maybe looking at offering that in 8th grade to kind of help alleviate that. One thing we've also done, you know, the state is very big on the 3 E's, which is enlistment, enrollment, and deployment, and they've changed it now to where kids don't have to take algebra 2 necessarily to graduate. And what we've done this year is we've tailored it a little more to the students who are in that enlistment or employment field to try to say, okay, let's put them in a more practical math setting that's going to apply more to what they're needing it for once they leave us. And so we put those students in a quant reasoning class in 11th grade, and they'll take a technical math in 12th grade. And so that'll help a little bit there, but as far as, you know, having the students in geometry and algebra 2 at the same time, the easiest way to alleviate that really happens when a kid's wanting to take calculus their senior year to move through. They got, you know, want to take pre-cal first. And so in order for them not to have to double up on that, it would have to be that they would have to take it in 8th grade. So they have to do algebra 1 geometry in 9th grade and algebra 2 in 10th grade. So.
Is that something we're looking at doing possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see us provide more options or opportunities for kids to engage when they're ready, right? Really, I mean, it's not quite as easy as saying, well, we want to offer algebra in 8th grade, because those kids have to be ready for algebra, right? And so that really starts, in my world, it starts in 1st grade and 2nd grade and 3rd grade. And how are we ensuring that we are making sure that our 3rd graders are on grade level in math? Because if our 3rd graders aren't on grade level in math, then our kids trying to access algebra in 8th grade is going to be a non-starter. Unless, I mean...
Well, the thing I'll point out, though, is I had a graduating class of 67. So which that tells me in 8th grade we might have had 75 at the most, and my algebra 1 class in 8th grade was full. There was 25 of us.
Right.
1/3 of my grade was in algebra 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't get 25 kids out of 150 ready for algebra 1 in 8th grade?
Well, no, I think we can, but it's not, I mean, it's not quite as easy as saying, okay, we're going to pick out 25 kids, and I mean...
Well, I mean, I knew there'd be some kind of scoring base, but I can tell you from my own personal experience with my son, who's now in 9th grade, I mean, he sleepwalks through class most of the time because he has nothing to do. Like, the classes just aren't challenging to him. So it's like, at what point are we supposed to be in education where it's education from A to Z and not just focusing on the middle of the alphabet? Like, the kids who are struggling, we need to bring them up, but the kids who are here, we shouldn't dumb them down. They should have the opportunity that
Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about.
But it doesn't seem like we have that opportunity, is what I'm getting at. Because I feel like even in the junior high level, like, that's what I was saying, bringing some of this stuff back down to the junior high. Because the junior high kids that want to push themselves are just staying still for 2 years.
At one time, they were offering Algebra 1 in 8th grade,
I
but it was
took
only
it in eighth
select.
grade, yeah.
It
Like,
was
that
only a
was-
select
it-
amount.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's always been that way, so I was surprised when he got in junior high that they don't do that. I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
sometime
no, they
between-
quit doing it, I guess.
Right, sometime in between, you know, leaving for college and coming back, we had switched that, this time we did a little bit more about that too, just at that time.
Was there a rationale behind that, Lori?
They changed the standards to where eighth grade math actually included a lot of the algebra one, and then they bumped the standards in algebra one. So whenever I taught the algebra one, I mean, we had about half the eighth grade class take it, and they knocked the test out of the park. But then whenever Common Core came in, they changed the standards, and then about half of the algebra one standards got down in eighth grade math. So then we had a problem because it was hard to teach all of it in 1 year in just algebra one.
Well, I guess the question I would have to follow up with that is like, what does the Atlas expect? Because if we're not doing well in math, is it because we're dumbing the math down too much to where the kids aren't getting what they need to even pass the standardized test that we're forced to give them?
Progress, we got the progress monitoring tool. That is going to hit deficits for these kiddos. The new math curriculum, there is an accelerated aspect to it, but we need to find out where we are first. And hopefully we'll hit that accelerated version and maybe offer those more accelerated classes, maybe get to algebra one in the eighth grade. We kind of need to see where we are right now because our scores aren't where we want them to be.
Is that the same for, like you said, in 10th grade, you'll have that more work-driven math? I mean, is that going to get those kids where they need to be for the Atlas scoring mode?
So those are for 11th grade and 12th grade, so that would be ACT there as work keys, and so yes, it will. It's more, what we're doing with that class is we're taking a different approach to it. Of course, we're covering the standards in that, but we're also kind of tailoring it to deficits for students, but really on the ACT, what are these kids going to need to be successful? And that goes straight into work keys too, because it's ACT work keys test, and we'll get to that here in a minute too, but that kind of just determines how successful or how ready they are for a job that tells them, or that is based on ACT, like that career management stuff.
Well, and I just want to be clear, like, I'm more for that type of approach,
Right.
but unfortunately, that's not how the state judges us. And
Right.
I hate the fact that we have to teach the standardized testing. It's silly, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's why Ms. Husband and I, Ms. Steiner, sat down and talked about how we want that to be, okay, let's focus on the ACT, like just those strategies, what they're gonna need, let's bump it back to pre-algebra and work on these skills that these students are missing. 'Cause truthfully, a lot of those students miss some of those skills, and so hit those, go over fractions and solving equations and order operations and all those good things, but just to build it up, and it can go rather quickly because they're capable, but then focus then once we get to second semester on, okay, what's that practicality side look like? So, I'm excited. It's our first year with it, but I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like. So, and to go off that too, we have a Redskin time, and I'll talk about it a little bit too, but we're tailoring a lot of it to if students are not on grade level as well. And so our 10th graders took the I-Ready diagnostic at the beginning of the year, gave us some fresh data on if they were on grade level or not. We placed those students into ELA and math groups based on if they were not on grade level in 10th grade. And then if they are not, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they have to go to an English or math teacher to receive intervention for that. If they're on grade level, then they go wherever they want to. They pick on that as far as.
So I didn't ask Bethany, you kind of do. So I guess the question for me would be, what are we doing to incentivize these kids? I mean, we were all kids at once, so getting a kid to take a standardized test in the grand scheme of it all, it doesn't matter anything. Are we doing anything to try to incentivize them to say, hey, you gotta do your best because, and I mean, they're kids, so I don't want to say like, well, because if you don't do good, you're gonna be stuck doing all this other stuff.
Right.
I mean, is that kind of told to them, like, if you don't score well, like, you're going to have to do this,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word.
Right. And we did, I communicated to the teachers to be very direct with and explicit with, that how you do on this can help determine whether or not, you have to go to these groups on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or you get to pick where you want to go. I think the students have gotten into it a little more. They see, I want to be in the places. And also, Bethany mentioned our semester test exam. That has much to do with housework every day, but I think that it does at the same time, because if they're getting more to them, and I can cover that here a little bit too, but that it'll help in the end with that standardized assessment too. So, and Bethany does a lot of her job in incentivizing than I do. So, but adding something that too.
Ms. Steinwell has been working a lot on the incentive side as well, especially at the junior high, because I do think that, I mean, we really have to do a lot of tricks and cartwheels and whatnot to get them
I don't
to.
envy you doing that as juniors at the end.
But we have some rewards that we have posters up in our hallway that explain to students. Right now, we're focusing on the iReady, because we can get that back a lot with Atlas, but now that we're going into the Atlas interims, we're hoping to be able to add some incentives to the interim piece as well, so that when they take those tests multiple times a year, we can kind of give them some rewards for doing well on those. We've got, well, we have planned for, so far we have,
Well, we need kids on grade level. If you don't have them on grade level, we can't push them with our new curriculum. So we want to bring everybody up. So basically, diagnostic 2 is going to be in January. If they reach their growth, if they reach growth, then we're going to incentivize that with a movie and punch card with, different things like you have preferential seating. We're going to try and do all that up. And I've just been around for a long time, but I remember taking kids from the junior high, this scares people, but taking them to Silver Dollar City, and that was one great trip, and kids wanted there.
We were going to Six Flags in junior high in Missouri for the same type of thing.
Yes, so maybe at the end of the year, if they reach their stretch growth, or their on grade level, we don't leave kids out that have done what they needed to do, so reach that stretch growth, we're taking a trip, so that's in the plan.
Well, my kid in third grade thought her teacher was gonna lose her job if she didn't do it, so. I think she was actually told that.
Did I hear you're going to take the kids to Six Flags in May?
I'll probably be busy working. But Chad will.
On the ELA data there, I did include some PJHS data, and the reason for that is so we can include that cohort in there. So that was, if you look at that, the 9th grade scores in 23-24, which would then have been our 10th graders last year at the top line. And so if you see there, we improved from 18% to 24% in that level 3, and then from 5 to 7 in level 4. And then, of course, we went up in our level 2 as well, and down to level 1, which is what we want when we grow kids through there. So. The next slide there is kind of like what Sean and Chris said there with the growth by performance level on the Atlas. And so it's got it broken down by the test and the years. And so you can see we're doing a really good job of growing our level 2s, 3s, and 4s. But our students, those negative numbers there mean that they just didn't meet their expected growth. Doesn't mean they didn't grow, they just didn't meet their expected growth. And so the positive scores there mean that a good majority of the students in that grade met their expected growth and maybe even some. And so, again, good data for us to have to take into our PLCs and to spark some discussion and dive into how that all worked out. So, ACT work keys, again, this is all about, assessment that tests their job skills and if they're ready based on ACT measures. We had 87 students scored bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Of those, 33 at bronze, 34 at silver, 11 at gold, and 9 at platinum. And just to break that down, platinum shows that the skills required, that they have the skills required for 99% of ACT profile jobs. And platinum is very hard to achieve. And so, that's why it seems like we don't have a whole lot of kids doing that, but they have to score platinum on multiple sections of that in order to achieve it. So, interventions, again, kind of, we've talked about that a little bit. We've got our ready, we'll have our common test data in our classes. We'll have the Atlas interims that we'll use. We have an ACT prep program that we use called Mastery Prep that we give a couple of assessments a year on. We have Ingenuity and Apex. We have our PLC process, and then Redskin Time again, where we give really tailored instruction to our students based on the need. And I'll list of some of our clubs and our activities there. Again, it's not an all-extensive list. It's just a good show that, you know, we want kids to belong, we want them to feel like they're involved at PHS. I think that goes along with participation and their willingness to give effort in our schools. So sources there, of course, my school info, and then my contact information. So, any other questions?
I have questions. Okay.
I tried to help
I appreciate it.
So to go off kind of what Bethany was saying about the weightlifting, and I know Chris has brought this up too, have we ever considered bringing that into the high school and doing like an athletic training off season to these sports where they're not just sitting in class, I mean literally sitting in classrooms off season doing nothing? Like where you could offer it as a PE credit, or as for a senior that hasn't taken PE yet could do weightlifting or.
No, I just to answer your question honestly, no, I'm not giving that a whole lot of thought. You know, a lot of the sports that are in the academic day, of course, like basketball and football, with girls and boys, you know, for basketball there, they have that off season where they are, you know, participating. But it's like tennis,
but a lot of them, they're not doing
and track.
They're not doing a whole lot, or
Right.
you know, they're setting off season for a few months before they get right back into practice, but they've still got just stagnant time that they could do weightlifting, or these kids that would take weightlifting or athletic training or doing something other than sitting in study hall.
Sure, yeah, sure.
So.
It's definitely something to look into. You know, I don't know what all class options are out there, you know, licensure codes and all kind of.
Well, I'll throw this out there just because we're on the topic, because of what I do for a living, and I've always proposed this might not be the time to even bring it up, but I will anyway. I'm a big advocate for us, the school district, having a strength and conditioning coach for the entire school district. And the reason why I say that is because people want to say it's tailored to the athletes. Well, from my perspective, it's tailored to the kids to keep them from getting hurt. Because a lot of the injuries I see here at the school basically are overuse injuries, because the kids are in a sport, training for another sport, and then maybe that's not the best weight training they need to be doing while they're participating in a certain sport. Now, it's off season for the other ones, so they want to be doing that. And not saying anything against the coaches like they're doing anything wrong, but when you have someone who's in charge of all of that, the things like she's talking about go away. Because now when the volleyball's in the off season, if they're not participating in another sport, here's the volleyball off season workout program, and this is what you do while you're in class. You don't just go in there, you know, kill time basically, but it's where it's structured for the entire district. And I think you'll see a lot of benefits to it, not just in the athletics themselves, but I think, you know, the school has insurance. I've used it quite a bit. So, I mean, I can't help but think that it doesn't save you money in the long run, or at least help offset the salary of someone doing that position in the school district, because your premiums could potentially go down, and your payouts are definitely going to go down, because some of the injuries that I'm seeing, I won't see anymore. I'll see the real, true random accidents, or someone tears an ACL. It's hard to prevent those things. It kind of happens, but.
And I think you're introducing kids to just healthy living and exercise. You could have whoever does this could have a month that they take these kids and do it swimming at the pool. You know, something to keep them active in the off season. Like, I mean, if they're doing weightlifting for a class, then why are we not bringing it all the way up at a different level?
Yeah, I'm not, truthfully, not really sure that course code kind of transitions over to the high school level. But it's something to look into, something to research. I mean, coach, we'll put our hats together and just see what we can come up with and develop.
So my other question is, do we have master's level art teachers where we could offer an AP art and they could get that fine arts credit?
I don't think that Ms. Solinger has her master's in that. Now, of course, you know, you don't have to have a master's to offer AP art or to get concurrent credit. They just have to pass the AP test at that point. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility.
I mean, just opening up some of our AP classes a little more optional to kids. I mean, because everybody has to have art.
Yeah.
So you're either doing it online or you're doing it at Black River.
And I'll follow up with Brent's question earlier. You know, make sure that you're staying in tune with, obviously, Dr. Arbuckle, but also the board, if we're trying to advance these things and the resources aren't available. Because we want to make sure that we can do whatever we can within our power to ensure that the kids have the resources they need to make those things happen.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Because I don't want to make a request that we can't help you deliver on.
Right.
And I brought up the weightlifting or the training or athletic, the training that he's talking about because of the new possible weight room. I mean,
Sure.
take
Yeah.
advantage of something like that, that we can use it all the time.
We'll put our heads together and come up with something and see if there's anything we can do there. So, for sure.
That's all my questions.
Gary? Yes, sir. Questions?
You have educated me for a long time.
I appreciate it, so.
Happens to Mr. Helms a lot. He educates all kinds of people.
Good
All
job.
right, thank you, Christian.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we have our first informational item. These are just two policies that I'm bringing to the board to let you know that they will be addressed by PPC. These are the licensed personnel parental leave policy that's located on page 47 of your packet, and then the sister policy to that, which is the classified parental leave policy. The reason we're looking at these policies now, or PPC is looking at these policies now, is because the rules have now been written for these policies, and so they are updates that came out of ASBA in the last, I think it's the last couple of weeks. So you'll notice that one of the things that they adopted or adapted is in the law said that the teacher had to work for the public school district. Okay, and you may have remembered I made an argument and shared with the board that my belief was the spirit of that law was any school district, right? Any public school. So if you worked at Jonesboro for a year and wanted to come over here, my argument was that we should cover them in a parental leave policy. At the time, because these rules weren't written, the advice that we got was, let's not count on that. It was very safe advice. Luckily, the state did come back, and they are looking at it the way I would hope they look at it, which is, if we hire a teacher an experienced teacher in from another school district, they would be covered under this parental leave policy if they needed parental leave, right? So they wouldn't have to be with us for a full year before their 12 weeks were to kick in. It would just happen automatically because they worked for a school district in the state of Arkansas.
So you're talking about only in Arkansas?
Yes.
And that's coming straight from another district, not
Correct.
taking a gap.
Correct, yes.
And wouldn't apply to first-year teachers, I guess, or would it apply to them?
It would not apply to first-year teachers. No. And then there is one line in there that if administration chose to, in essence, count those days against them, we would have to pay them their per-day rate. So it's in the model policy. I would not, as a superintendent, I would not count those days against them, meaning if we were going to, let's say that someone had a baby over Thanksgiving break, and we wanted to say, well, we're going to count Thanksgiving break as your part of your 12 weeks, then we would have to pay them their daily rate for those days off, if that makes sense. Same thing with Christmas break, same thing with spring break, okay? So that is in both the licensed personnel policy, and then there is a sister policy that is the classified personnel. I'm bringing it to you today so that you know that it's out there. Next week, I will be taking it to PPC. They will be voting on it, and then it will come back to you for a vote in November. Any questions on either of those policies? Okay, we didn't have anything scheduled for old business, but Chad, you brought up something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So, in our April 7th meeting, we had Michael McBride here, and he gave us 4 options for raising money for a new high school. 2 or 3 of them involved restructuring the bond, right? When you click on the FAQs on the website, it doesn't speak anything about that. Is there a way to put that on there to give people the option that are looking at our Plan B? Because your Plan Bs say on there, you're going to downsize the size of the school or you're going to remodel. But technically, there's the best way I see forward if it fails is to either restructure a bond or get a new bond to cover the extra construction expense.
That's what we're doing. Like, that's Plan A.
I know, but does not involve raising millage. So in the April 7th meeting, if you watch it, Michael McBride states, you know, he said you can basically borrow $5 million without your payment going up. You can borrow up to, I think it's 9 or 10 million, and you'll still have 300,000 left. Right now you have $775,000 left that is extra, basically your surplus in your millage, in your bond. So basically, you know, if you watch the meeting, you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, he gave us 4 options there on that meeting. And so, you know, it seems like when people ask, what's the plan B? You know, no one is stating that, because that would be my plan B if it fails, you know.
Well,
is to-
let me ask you this, 'cause the way I understand that is what you're describing is Plan A and Plan B. The only difference is not increasing the millage doesn't give us more money to do that. Meaning, if we only have 700,000 in the budget now, let's just say hypothetically pass the millage and it gives us $1 million, well, Plan A and Plan B is the same. Now we just get stuck with 700,000 to pay back that loan. We don't get the millage to pay back that loan.
Well, the reason the millage would fail is because people don't want to raise taxes, and the bond restructuring would not raise taxes, and so that
Well,
would...
it doesn't raise taxes, but it raises the amount that we have to pay back.
Yes, correct. It's like a loan for the school.
Yes, so that means we have to have the money to make that payment back.
And if you watch the
What we
April
were
7th...
saying when we proposed the millage increase was that we don't feel like we safely have enough money to
Well, I mean,
make that payment.
You can
and
watch,
not put-
you can watch Michael McBride, and he recommends that we're one of the most financially secure schools. In fact, Jennifer asked him what kind of debt per ratio is a normal school, and he said 10%. Some schools are 30. We're 3.3% of
That was
our
also
assets.
saying keeping the number at 82%. So if we keep everything as is, and we borrow the money we need to make this school, we're no longer gonna be operating at 82%. We're gonna be operating at 87 to 90%, is my understanding from that meeting.
That shouldn't
My
change,
understanding
that percentage should not change with a payment. That's the amount of money, what we're bringing in versus payroll to the staff.
So if your house payment goes up at your house, the amount of money that goes out of your house doesn't increase?
Well, the 82% figure is for the payroll for the teachers and all that, out of what you bring in. So if your payment goes up, that shouldn't change that 82%.
Okay, so let's look at it differently then. So if there's $700,000 is what we talked about being at the end of the month, or at the end of the year, or whatever, monthly, I guess, towards that payment, or yearly payment, if the payment goes up, that number's gonna get much smaller.
Yes.
What we all agreed as a board was we didn't wanna run that close.
Yeah.
To long, that low of a surplus.
For sure, yes.
So
I
that's
didn't,
why the
I didn't
millage-
agree with that, you know, and, you know.
But you're the only one that didn't
I
agree
know.
with it, we all did.
But
Well,
our financial
it's gonna prevent us
advisor,
going forward with our plans as far as being able to keep, you know, with the salary increase for the faculty.
our financial advisor, Michael McBride, on April 7th, if you watch the video, he recommended, hey, you can do this, you're very financially secure. I just want to let the public know that there is another way if it does fail, rather than remodeling.
Well, I just.
If you watch the video, if you spend 15
Well, I
minutes
think
watching
if we go that
that,
route, I want the public to know that if we go that route, I think it will put us in a very tight.
well, you can put that on the, you can put that on the verbiage there. You can say option 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, the school is having to borrow money. Right now, we only have 2 loans out, but one is paying off in 2 years. We will continue to just have 2 loans out, but our loan amount will go up because we're having to borrow, the school district is having to borrow, meaning our payment will go up. If we borrow $5 million, it will not go up. If we borrow $7 million, it will go up $300,000, and so on. Right now, we have $775,000.
That makes an overall debt. It's just, go back to common sense.
Yes, right now, we're at 3.3% debt versus our assets.
I think we would be putting this district in debt for the next 30 years. There won't any of us be here.
Again, just, I mean, I'm not the financial advisor. Michael McBride's our financial advisor. He said we are very financially secure. If you watch the video,
This thing keep
There's a
everything as
reason why
is.
we are financially secure.
no, he said,
We haven't risked it.
he said you could easily go up. Jennifer asked him, he said, how much percentage is it per schools? And he said most schools are at 10%. So 10% is payment versus how much assets we have. We are at 3.3%. He
The
said
last
some
time-
schools are at 30%.
The last time Michael was here with Nabholz, with the plans, with everything, he stood right there and said, I do not advise you to not ask for a millage. Like that. I
Well, he
specifically-
told us that a bond, we could possibly do it with a bond, but he strongly
He strongly
advised
advised against
not
it.
to.
I don't remember if it was July or
Right,
August.
it's possible to do it. I think what we have to decide, do we want to put the school district that far in debt for the next 30 years?
Well, it's gonna prevent us from going forward if we use everything we have. You know, with
It's kinda like-
salary
We got other
increases,
buildings coming up.
hiccup,
We could afford
I
a
mean,
Chevrolet, but we're trying to buy a Cadillac, you know, we just don't need to take that chance. And no
I don't
other
necessarily agree with that logic. I think we can afford to build what we need to build. We just need help from the community, just like every other school district asks their community to help. Just like me as a local business person, I work here, I depend on the community to make my living. So, to me, asking for a millage for our kids for this school is another way of giving back to our kids and the
Well,
community.
I just feel like it's deceptive to say we would only be able to remodel, because that is definitely not an option.
I don't think that's what
anyone
we're
can-
saying.
I think the only thing.
That's what the option number one is on the FAQs on the website. I don't think any of us is in favor of remodeling the school, or option number two. Option number one is downsizing the size of the school. I just think that
I don't think
it's only fair.
How we can downsize the school, because we're already building it at the bare minimum that the state's requiring us to build.
It's only fair to let the public know there is another option of borrowing money. Yes, it's going to, the school's going to take on some debt, but if you watch the video, we're at 3.3% of our assets would be our debt right now. Most schools are at 10, some schools are at 30%. He said we're one of the most financially secure schools in that regard.
I don't know that option 3 is borrowing the money though, because I don't know that we would get to that option where, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting that school in that position.
Just to be clear, a school district cannot borrow any money absent second lien bonds without a voter approval.
Yes, but there is an option of
So-
second lien bonds.
But we're still gonna have the community to vote on it.
Not a second.
Not for a second lien bond, you wouldn't.
Just
but-
the restructuring of the existing bond would be a vote. So
That's the only thing you can't,
that's
that
what
a board
happened
can
when
do.
we borrowed 4.3 million when I first got on the board. It was actually already came into the bank account whenever I got on the board, because they were planning on moving forward with it, and then construction costs went up, and that was a third lien bond or whatever. That's how you get it, and
And that's what we're doing already on the
no,
the
we're
first
not.
bond.
We're not borrowing any money. I mean,
Yeah,
we're going.
refinancing that.
Well, for sure, that's part of it, but we're also asking for an increase in taxes, and so
Right.
if it does get shot down, it's gonna be because of the increase in taxes. It's not gonna be that, hey, we wanna borrow more money. Can we borrow more money from the public? They're not gonna say no. I mean, the ones that are vote against it will vote for it if we just say, we're just borrowing money, we need your permission, so.
I understand why people don't want to increase taxes, because they have this mindset of like, I don't want the government saying that I have to pay more taxes, I have to do this. But I'm struggling with, you as a business owner, him as a business owner, me as a business owner, why we won't put back into our community if we want our community to support us locally. Why we can't do that for our community. Our millage is so low.
Well, you saw my email I sent you about how much the school brings in.
I realize that, but Chad, you just put a business in a town that's millage is twice as much as ours. So they're supporting their town, they're supporting locally, but why can't we do that here?
I don't understand what you mean.
Like the millage in Arkadelphia is 44.5.
Well, I understand that, but the email I sent you guys shows the Pocahontas receives more per student than any other student in any other class around here. I don't know if you looked at that
I did.
data. But, yeah, you can say that the millage is lower, but we're actually receiving more per student than any other school I could find record of. And so that's just something that, yeah, you can say, that's why we have 2.3 million every year extra.
Okay, I will say, and I mean, since you brought it up, the email that you sent to me anyway, I'm assuming this is the one we talked about, you used both restricted and non-restricted funds to figure that number. You cannot do that. You have to use Fund 1, Fund 2, and Fund 4, and the numbers aren't correct. I'm just gonna, and we'll talk about that on Thursday. That's part of that conversation that you and I and Nick Hill will have, where he's gonna lead you through, exactly what you're looking at. He has quite a bit more experience than I do, so maybe that will give you some peace of mind that what we are sharing is accurate.
I'll restate this. The concern I have with the numbers you presented out, Chad, and I'm not disregarding what you put in there as not being your best attempt. But the difference is I run a business and you run a business. But the rules in which I have to operate, because I'm in healthcare, are different than the rules you have to operate in retail. And education is a whole nother creature. So I don't feel comfortable, even though I feel like I'm pretty financially savvy with numbers. When I look at our numbers for the school district, it is confusing, and I think part of the problem is because of those rules. Like, you can see that money, like it looks like it's there and available, we can access it, and you kind of can, but only for this. You can't just move that number around and manipulate it because it's against the law. So I don't understand how we get audited every single year by the state, and they have never failed us in any kind of financial
For sure,
audit.
yeah, for sure.
So how are our numbers that we get that the state approves of so much different than yours? Because we're showing that we don't have 2.3 million at the end of every year.
Well, we gotta be. I mean, there's no ifs about it. We've started with.
But the state's auditing us,
Well,
and
no.
they don't say that we do.
Well, no, if they asked them that question, hopefully we'll find out on Thursday. I mean, if you grow from $2 million in your savings account and bank account to 18 million in the space of 5 years, you're definitely saving money. There's no ifs, ands about it. You're definitely saving money. So I don't know, but when you show a graph that shows the transfers out of your checking account into your savings account, and that's counted as expense, that's not a true expense. That is a transfer from one account to the other. It shows that we spent more money that year than we brought in, which is not true, because 4 million, 5 million, some of that is a transfer into our savings account. That ballooned our savings account. That's what I stated by that email. That is what is being deceptive, I feel, is showing that the school is some years is not bringing in as much money as we're paying. That is not true. Because of the transfer from when you first came on the board, you came to us and you said, we're gonna have to transfer $4 million out of our checking account into our bank.
I said that was my suggestion, yes, sir.
Yes, and we did that. But now it counts as an expense on our general fund. It shows it up as expense on our checking account because $4 million left our account. Well, guess what? That is not a true expense. That is a transfer into our savings account, which ballooned by $4 million that year. So we cannot accurately say that year cost us more money to operate because $4 million went out of our checking account into our savings account. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, Chad, I want to say something.
Do what you want on the FAQs. I just feel like it's a little deceptive to not say the other option that our financial advisor advised us to do in April. He came back 2 months later and changed his complete mind about the millage, and I think that was because we were pretty much going forward with the millage at that point. He's not going to tell us to go back to restructuring the bond. I even verbally told him when he was here 2 months later that, hey, 2 months ago you told us that the best course of action was the restructuring the bond. I just feel like that there is another option financially that you could put on that sheet. You're welcome not to. I just feel like, it's...
Well, here, Chad, on this, there's a reason to talk about the building fund. This was started in 1995
Okay.
by this board, and I sat on that board when it started.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did was build that fund to where we would not have to go to the taxpayers for millage increases.
But we are now.
4 years ago, around the last millage, there had been $40 million worth of improvements to this district without one single penny of going, coming from the millage. So the idea was, if we have a big project, which we knew, we all know, the elementary school would have to be replaced at some point. In the back of our mind, that's what, back in the late 90s and 2000s, we were saving that money for this day that's coming on November the 18th. Simply because if we hadn't done that, we would be asking probably for a 6 or 7 million increase. It's to make it lower.
Yeah,
You understand, we were saving a down payment. We did the same on the elementary.
Sure.
That's why the fund was there. And I think we need to continue to put it in there for years forward. I think it's just smart.
Well, for sure, but I don't know where you're getting at here. I mean, what are you getting at? I mean, as far as...
Well, you were saying, you were kind of leaning to, we don't need to save that money, but we do. Because in the long run, it makes the millage less, because you're going to have to raise your millage.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything's wrong with saving money. I just want to say that, hey, any money we're putting into our buildings fund can be used for a project. But To say that, hey, the school is not saving money for a building fund is inaccurate.
Well, even if going with your logic though, if you're saying that, then what's gonna happen is now there is no money to transfer to the savings account. So whatever's left after we built that school, that's all we're gonna have until we gotta build another school. Then guess what? There is no building fund to help build another school. So where's that money supposed to come from? Because this school isn't getting any younger, that school's not getting any younger.
These are gonna be future projects down the road.
So if we're not saving anything, and we're taking everything we've got to put in savings and putting it all into the new high school, what happens when these school buildings?
Well, I've already explained this several times. We've got 500,000 we can allocate for new maintenance. We can put 500,000 a year into our building fund for anything, even, high school or other stuff. And we can take 500,000 in for new hires or raises for our staff.
But you realize
That's
that
1.5 million.
500,000, you're talking about new hires and raises, once that's allocated, that's gone forever.
Yes, but every
So
year,
next year-
every year you're getting it back. You're getting 500,000. You may not want to do it every year. You got an extra 500 every year because you may not want to do that every year.
No, you're misunderstanding. Once you've allocated to that first year,
Yep.
that 250,000, you've got to pay it every year. It's a raise. It's a raise, Chad.
Okay, true.
So now we're gonna get 2 raises and then that 500,000 is gonna be
For
gone.
sure, yes.
But
Now-
here's the problem though. How much of that raise we gave? We just gave the district what we gave
Yeah,
them, it cost
and that's
238,000.
completely not, the numbers can go either way. There's 500,000 into, now we're gonna lose 900,000 from our interest whenever we spend the money on the high school. So we're gonna lose that. So I'm not counting the extra million there. But really, realistically, we're at 1.5 million. We're now getting $1 million more, right? We're getting $1 million more this year than last year, correct? From the state. That hasn't even been allocated by the end of the year.
But see,
We're
to me,
making
it still feels like you're operating in the here and now, because that's just what we know we're getting for the next 2 years. The next 2 years after that, it can go the opposite direction.
It's never gone down.
Good.
Now, that's one
What
thing.
about
It could go away.
What if they pull federal funding? That's $1 million a year to the school district.
Well, if there's a guarantee for income, it's far more guaranteed than my business. I don't know what I'm gonna do next year. At least the school has a pretty good idea what they're gonna bring in next year.
Well, they know what they're gonna do based on the current laws in place, but 2 years from now, those laws can completely change.
True, for sure. Everything can happen, yeah.
And everything says, and the trends are pointing that the state's gonna pull back more and more. And Trump's already said he's getting rid of the Department of
Yeah,
Education.
we can't speculate
So
on what might happen.
but if we don't prepare for that, and that just gets dumped in our lap, and we're doing what you're doing, we're tapping out everything we got, and we can't absorb any kind of financial hit.
We're broke.
Until we've got our $5 million left in
Again,
savings.
watch what our financial advisor says. He says you guys can go drop from 775,000 surplus down to 335, and you would have an extra probably $8 to $9 million. He was fine with that. He said you'll still have a surplus in your millage, in your debt service
But
millage.
that's $300,000 surplus, that's not a very big surplus for a.
Considering we got a $900,000 a month salary, does that go out?
I don't know what that is. What do you mean by salary?
Our payroll here.
Well, I know, but that's already in the budget. This is I'm just saying,
But if we
don't
don't
listen to
get
mine.
standard
I'm not the
payroll
financial advisor. You can watch that video on April 7th.
Right.
And I'm just saying, we kind of went against his initial recommendation from April 7th.
I don't feel that we ever went against his recommendation.
Well, watch the video again. Just watch the video again. You'll see. He completely changed his mind with the 2 meetings later, with the millage after it was pretty much decided we were moving forward with the millage. So,
One question I do have, will you print a retraction on Facebook after your meeting Thursday if you're satisfied?
what's Thursday? About 2.3
You're gonna meet
million.
with the guy from the
Yeah,
state
if I
as far as-
find the school is not saving 2.3 million, I will, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so operationalize for me one more time. What does saving mean to you? So that
saving for
so
whatever,
that
a building fund, whatever.
Okay, well, I'll say right now, yeah, we have been strategically
Okay.
putting money into the building fund.
For sure, yeah. Because, we weren't sure whether we were gonna spend.
Now, it hasn't been 2.3 million a year, but it has been, $4 million that one year.
Been doing that since '95.
Okay, well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out Thursday if he brings the numbers, but,
I think
there's,
what Mr. Gary was trying to say earlier, Chad, is the whole point of putting money into the saving account was not to ever expect to not have to go to the community and ask for a millage for huge projects. It was like in school, building a new school is a huge project. It was to help minimize the amount that we had to ask for. And compared to other school districts around here who have all built local schools or new schools, the number we have asked for is far less than what they have asked for.
They've been asking for 4, 6, 7.
Maybe we should get an idea of what the total is since like
You got
2000,
new
what
schools
the
going
money's
up
been
in Kearney, you
done.
got new schools going up in
Out of that
Hopkins,
account.
you
How
got brand new high school in West Side.
Because even with doing the math you're doing and putting that money back, that's still gonna say that in 20 years, 25 years, if we gotta replace one of these schools, you're gonna be right back in the same boat. You're not gonna have the money to do both. You can't put money back into a savings account and not increase the millage. You can't do that. And if you do it your way this go around, there's gonna be no money to put in the savings account to build a new school, maybe to do odds and end projects and, you know, enhance some things, you know, that type of deal, but not to build a new school. So then what do we do?
I like what Chad said, you know, he said, yeah, we can borrow enough money to do this, but what I'm saying,
We're gonna have a shortfall in other areas.
because it boxes you in for the next 30 years. And you have to replace M.D. Williams, we all know the problems we got over there. What are we gonna do?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I mean, Chad's not wrong,
Oh, I didn't say it was wrong.
but it's just which is the best route to go.
But I just want people to know that I don't feel like, at least on my part, I've only been on the school board for less than a year now, so I'm still learning as we go along. Not at one point in time have I ever said anything in this room or outside of this room to deceive the public. So, you know, the fact that, I guess the issue that I had when that was posted on Facebook, it made it sound like we were in cahoots, so to speak, and you were the only one standing alone to stand up against what you thought was wrong. When all it really is I'm not saying you're wrong, but based on the rules and regulations, this is not my area of expertise. I mean, I've got to lean towards the professionals, which is the state who forces us to have audits every year.
Yeah.
And their math isn't math in the same.
Well, and like you said, you admitted there's $2.3 million a year going into our sector.
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, what did you say?
What I said is, the district has strategically moved money from the operating to the building fund because we're required to by law at the end of every year to not carry over more than 20%, right? And the understanding that I got as I took this position was the district wanted to build a high school. And so if those were if that was a goal, then knowing that the community turned down the opportunity to pass a 3.54 millage rate, knowing that was conversations that I've had that was not something, I mean, to entertain a 3.5 or higher millage rate seemed foolish to me because the community's already turned it down. We looked at what our options, Michael was here, the way I remember that, based on that, was Michael said, you have 3 questions that I had to answer for him. This board had to answer for him. And that was, how much do you want in reserve? What do you want the millage rate to be? And then how much do you need to do the project? We answered those, we spent, I think, 2 months answering those 3 questions for him. One of the answers to that question was that the board had decided that maintaining an excess debt revenue of around $750,000, which is what the board currently has, that was one of the goals. Okay, and so we gave him that information, and he came back to us, and I think that's the meeting you're referring to. He came back to us and said, okay, given those parameters that the board provided, here's what you need to ask for.
That was the July 7th meeting when he came back to us. The April 7th meeting was when he initially, we didn't have a clue whether we were doing a millage or restructuring. Just
Right.
go back and watch the April 7th meeting. The July 7th meeting is where he came back and actually pitched the millage. But regardless, I just, you don't have to put nothing on there. It just seems like when you look at the FAQs as far as what's Plan B.
So let me break it down to this then. So Michael said, to keep the excess of $750,000, we have to increase the millage 2.99, which is what we, or 2.9, whatever the number is what we agreed to, right? You agreed that was what was said, that was the number. Okay, so let's make sure that we make it perfectly clear. Can we build this school and make our payment without doing that? The answer is yes. But what the public needs to know is that excess amount of 750, which we need to potentially have for teacher raises, et cetera, down the line, will get cut in half at least. And we won't have that excess anymore. Is that fair?
Well, it's fair, but at the same time, all right, here we go again. We're 775,000 or so on. We have an excess debt, right? We can borrow $5 million and that payment will still, that 775,000, our payment will not go up. We can borrow $5 million. We can borrow about $9 million and that 775 drops to 335,000. So we're still getting 335 every year, surplus. So basically, we still haven't tapped into our surplus, completely tapped. Now, if we want to spend 12 or 13.
What school district would ever go in there with a school board and tap your surplus out?
We've got 775,000 surplus on that alone. We have another 800, a million.
Keep in mind, though,
surplus
we're talking about
elsewhere.
raises, right?
Yeah.
So if that raise has to come out of that surplus,
It doesn't have to.
where else are you gonna get it from?
You can get it from the other 800,000 that we have extra. You can get it from the new.
Well, that's 800,000 you said we have extra, not what the school district.
For sure, for sure. You can get it from the extra 500 per student we're getting this year versus last year, okay? And so, there's other ways to,
It's just frustrating, Jack, 'cause I feel like what you're trying to do is get the community to say that your math is accurate.
No, I'm not getting the community to say it. I'm not getting the community to say it. It's just,
You posted it on Facebook, so you want the community to believe your numbers are accurate.
okay, we'll find out Thursday if my numbers are accurate. But if we're
My
trying.
point was, though, is you shouldn't have done that to begin with,
Why?
because you overstepped.
Why
There's
did I
four other
overstep?
members on this board,
Okay.
and you hung us out to dry.
I don't understand how.
And what do you mean you don't understand?
Yeah, I don't.
You even alluded to it in your deal, that you were the one who came up with this, and we were just like some buffoons, I guess, in agreement with what the school district said.
No, I said, I have, on the post, I said, the school, we are in good financials,
And that's why we asked
situation.
for the millage increase for the community to stay that way.
I put on the
I
millage,
don't
I
believe we can
said,
stay that way going your route. Can we do it? Yes.
everything I put on that post is accurate that I put down there. Everything I put on the post. I didn't
Yes,
say,
we just have to
I didn't
make-
claim nothing about the board not claiming that they don't agree.
It's implied.
So,
I read it as implied.
Is there a way we can find a total number that the school district has paid over the last 25 years for improvements without using that building fund?
it would take a long time.
Yeah, we probably can. It probably would.
I mean, you said tentatively.
The $1 million to the,
Because I think that would
cafeteria.
give an idea of like how responsible the school has been without asking for a millage. The millage has been asked for the elementary school because it's a school, we can't fund that. But, with the athletic complex, with the improvements in MD Williams, with the improvements in here, any
New
new
gymnasium
gym,
back here.
Only time
the parking
I
lot.
remember there been a millage increase earmarked for improvements. In 1988, we had a millage increase. I think MD, I believe, was when we built it. It was, I don't remember what it was. The district had not had another millage until 2017 to fund a project, which was the elementary. And it was 3.6 or what it was. Now, the rest, everything else built in the meantime was done.
That's what I'm saying, if we could gather a number that says, hey, the school
Now,
is.
we did refinance a bond along with our building fund to do that athletic building. And the math and science wing was around $3 million, paid for out of the
Outbuilding.
building fund.
Yeah.
But you also got to factor in, Chad, and this is your area, the construction costs have skyrocketed
Oh, yeah.
in the last 5 years, and they're not going anywhere. They're on, like you said, they never go down, so all they're going to do is continue to go up. So how are we supposed to do this in the future? And the thing is, I just feel like, and I think all the board members agree, no one wants to pay more taxes But unfortunately, the problem that I have as a board member, and probably the rest of you guys, and I know everybody in the community is, the bone they want to pick isn't at this table. Like, and that's why I feel like your email kind of reads a little bit, or your message on Facebook kind of reads that this room is a room that you're having a problem with about the millage, and it's not. The state gave us this option, and it is the only option to raise money for a school. The only other option, and I'm more than happy to accept, and I'm sure Dr. Albuck will, is if anybody around here wants to privately donate to fund this project, we will take their money, unless it's illegal that I'm not aware of.
But to change the way the taxes are spent, that's a state level.
There's just nothing we can do about that, and I feel like that's where the bone for the community is really needs to be picked, and that's a state representative level, and none of us in this room are. Because it is what it is.
Well, I mean,
that's how
everything I stated on that post was accurate. And you may say, well, the school isn't really saving 2.3, even though their bank account's going up 2.3 every month. Yeah, we're going to build a school eventually out of that money. So it's up to you whether you want to decide whether that's savings or if it's allocated for a high school down the road. But it's a little deceptive to say the school is not adding to their building fund every year, 2 million plus. It's a deceptive to say that. And I will stand by that no matter what, because you can look at the bank account. I've done it 3 times now. This is how much was in 2022. This is how much is in 2025. There's no way around it. The school is spending money in the building fund. And I did not put any accurate information on there.
So you were not alluding that you were the only one in favor of improving the Agri facility?
I just said it seems like
When was the last time you brought it up in an open meeting?
Well, I'm not saying, I'm sorry about that if I offended you as far as made it
No, you
imply
didn't
that other
offend
people.
me,
Okay.
but I mean, you said everything was accurate.
Yes.
When was the last time you brought up the Agri bill?
Have I mentioned it to you about pushing
No,
forward
in the
with agri?
meeting. I have not seen it on an agenda, I think, in 6 months.
So I guess to stay on topic here, not to cut you off, Brandon.
No, you're good.
I guess what I would like to see, even if we have this meeting on Thursday and let's just say your act numbers are not disproven to be inaccurate to your satisfaction, can we at least agree to make sure the public understands that while building this school based on your numbers is possible, I'm speaking for 1 of 5 here, I do not think it is financially wise to do it that way. And I feel pretty comfortable in saying, and I'll go back and look at the tape, that Michael, at least the second meeting, did not advise doing that either.
You know, I'm wondering, in the April meeting, he didn't have all of the figures together at that point.
He had all the
idea.
figures numbers together. You can just watch the April meeting.
But did he have all the figures in place of what we were planning to build?
The way I remember that, and I believe we've still got the documentation. He gave us, I think, 4 different options that were a range of millage asks and a range of how much it would deplete the excess debt revenue. And that's when he said, you have 3 questions you have to answer for me. How much do you want left? How much do you want to ask for? And then we'll figure out what the, in essence, what the millage was. And, we answered those 3 questions and said, okay, here's what, based on a vote of the board, that the board wanted to keep the same amount of excess debt revenue. We wanted to keep the millage ask, and that was my recommendation, below 3, right? And that we were probably looking at around a $35 million project. And I think the other question, if I remember right, was how much is the board willing to use out of the building fund?
Well, in April, did we even know how much state we were going to get? That didn't come until May.
I don't remember. That may be true. That may be true. But I do remember, that one of the conversations we had that's when we had the conversation of, were we going to leave 5 in the building fund? Were we going to leave 3 in the building fund? 12, 15, what does that look like? And the board as a whole decided 12 was what you were willing to, a minimum of 12 right? Meaning we had 5 that we could cover contingencies if necessary, if other things came up. That's, I mean.
Or even overages.
And then when we answered that question for him, he then, I don't know, took a week, 2 weeks, and then came back to us with the millage tables that he presented
Well,
us
what
the
we're
last
doing is
time.
standard procedure for schools in Arkansas to do it like this. We have dropped that number down very low because of building low. But what Chad's saying, I understand what he's saying, I wish we could do that. But the reason I would be opposed to do that, you're more or less taking a double mortgage out on your house. Because we're already borrowing a bond, refinancing one bond. If you go out and purchase another bond, then you're taking a double mortgage on this, what you can't make the payment. I mean, naturally we will, but I don't know of any school district in Arkansas that does that. I've never heard of it. I would be afraid of it.
And that's what I was getting at.
Exactly.
I would not be financially comfortable doing it that way. I just think
There are things that's
you're
going
playing
to be
Russian
needed
roulette.
down the road. I mean, we've got a 10-year plan that there's some things that are like a expansion of the ag-grab program we haven't done, replacement of the baseball lots we haven't done. We know that we've got an elephant room with this M.D. Williams building that could possibly be a major thing to us in the future. So there's a lot of things that we have to keep on keeping on.
You know, back on the, didn't mean to interrupt if you weren't done, but on the agri deal, we were looking at a land deal. Has any of that come around anymore or been talked about?
The last I was told is there's been some shuffling amongst that group, meaning resignations.
Well, no, I'm not just talking about over there, but we also had the property that laid here between us and the elementary. Remember he had approached us and then did he just,
Well, that sort of stalled,
away.
right now, my perception is that stalled out when they started talking about the bypass and the
right,
And the
gotcha.
road.
the roundabout.
Didn't know exactly where it was gonna end up.
Taking up that space. You know, I will say, I mean, I've got another, my intention is to go to the next fair board meeting to inquire again and, you know, on what that, you know, do they want to make a move, do they not?
They had a great turnout this year. That was probably the best in 10 years.
It was a
Plus.
great turnout, but I think if we could work something out where we use their facilities, I mean, just,
Yeah.
and I mean, that has been discussed, so I alluding to the fact that the rest of the board's not interested in agri, I feel like that's what the post was. And I think that we've had so many discussions. And I mean, I would encourage our agri instructors to come to a board meeting and say, hey, this is what we would like to see, this is what we need. I've yet to see that.
Well,
So-
we've looked at it for, I mean, it's probably been 5, 6, 7 years ago. We were presented with a plan, or, you know, kind of a tentative plan. But that was during COVID.
Have we toured have any of you guys, has anyone toured the facility over there recently?
But
The
I think.
I mean, it is in a mud hole over there, and the wiring is terrible. And it's just, I mean, we can make it happen, we can get it fixed, whatever way we're gonna move forward. I mean, for 200,000 or 300,000, we can get a lot done. And that's just,
Well, that's fair, but I also think that was one, I mean, I'm not even a big agri person. I mean, my daughter's into that kind of thing, so I was all on board looking at, that was where kind of fairgrounds came into play, because it's kind of like the baseball lot thing we were talking about. It didn't make sense to dump money in that when there might be something in the background working that's 6 months down the road, and you turn around and spend that money, and now this is available. So it's kind of like, unfortunately, the wheels of progress sometimes turn slow. I kind of want to finish this out first to see where this ends, because I think now we can incorporate that all together. And now it's like, to me, my vision with that is that's a whole new program, because you've got all that empty space in the back. Maybe we bring some plant science stuff back into the agri program because you have the room for it.
yeah.
Well,
But
I don't think the point I was making is there's other things that we need to do for our kids. But certainly we've all laser focused on this high school project, and we should be. But there's gonna be money needed, and I don't want us to get in debt to where we can't do any of those things. And the insurance situation, frankly, really scares me. Because, you know, one time we had one incident on this campus that cost us over $1 million one time. It was a hell of a storm.
Well,
Had
like
we
I
not
said,
had
even the conversation we just had with the principals, I mean, I don't want us to not have funds available to get these programs off the ground.
We can't keep throwing hypotheticals out there. We can't keep throwing health
It's
forms
not a
out there.
hypothetical, Chad. If we make an higher payment, we
Yes.
are going to have less money to
Yes,
use.
but that's in our insurance. We've got, yes, a deductible, but it hasn't gone up to $1 million.
Our deductible is not going to pay for curriculum programs. I'm talking about.
Okay, that's fine.
But Chet, the reason I'm opposed to that is it puts us in a bind for 30 years. Who's gonna come after us? What's it gonna look like? I think we, to be good stewards of the money, we need to be conservative to the point where we're not putting this school district in jeopardy somewhere down 20, 25 years down the road. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this.
Well, that's always the easy governmental approach is to raise taxes.
I'm
It's always the
conservative,
easiest
but
way.
I'm gonna vote conservative.
Whether you're in state government or federal government, the easiest way is always to raise
Well,
income.
then run for state representative and go to
Why-
Little Rock and change the rules.
I think the state is giving us more than enough money to make ends meet here to build our own school. We just have to be,
I disagree.
I disagree that they have gave us enough. Because of all the local schools that they have shut down over the years, all the money they have saved, the state should give us 100% of this money.
Because the other thing I think you're forgetting too, Chad, when the government gives us money, not all of it's just like, here, go run it how you want. It's earmarked, and you cannot use it for anything other than what it's earmarked for. So it's just not just a big potload of money just flowing in,
I understand.
and then we decide where it goes. I don't know, you could probably put a percentage of it, but based on the numbers I see, well above half is already earmarked before it even walks in the door. Am I wrong on that?
Are we kicking the can?
You need a break, Gary.
Yeah, I'll take a break. We're kicking this can too much.
All right, you want to take a break?
all right, Pocahontas School Board meeting is back in session.
Okay, so we have our first action item. The first action item is the monthly financials. So you have in your packet the financials for the month. Starting on page 49, you have the board report. The one thing I'll kind of point out on the board report is you're noticing that in the in certain I'm going to call them categorical. These are restricted funds. So in certain restricted funds, for example, preschool, you see a negative number there. You also see a negative number in catastrophic. You see some negative numbers in ALE. All of those programs are programs that we fund out of the operating money, out of the operating account, because the state does not send us enough money to run the ALE program. That top one, the 2005, the PSD preschool, that is the our paid tuition for preschool. And so it's very similar to our Fund 6, which is our federal money. You'll see there that quite a bit of that money, as of the pull on this, has not been reimbursed. The reason that looks that way is because the information the state pulls on that to reimburse that is pulled on the second Saturday of the month. And so in essence, the second Saturday in October, they pull that information and then they send us a wire transfer, and then we note that transfer at the end of the month. So all the time, we're still spending money as well, right? Because we have to keep those programs going. And so it will, as we get deeper into the year, it will even out, and those numbers will come back to the positive side. But that's why you're seeing those numbers the way they look. Following that, page 51-ish, you see the revenue report that I present each month. It has the, as we always do, it has the year-to-date revenue as a percentage of the month, and we compare that to where we were last year. So you have that information, and you see that. And then on approximately page 53, you have the expenses. Just to be clear, I know we talked about it earlier, these are the expenses not including the transfers. So when you see the operating fund there with that, those are the actual expenses to what we're what we're paying for there. So, again, nothing out of the ordinary. You also have on the expenses, you have the year-to-date compared to where we were last year. Obviously, if there's any specific questions, be happy to address those. You do have like you always do, you have the detailed statements, you have the checks, the record of the checks that are written, you have all that information. If there are no questions, then we would just need a motion to approve the financials.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the monthly financials. Everybody in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, page 93, we need to approve the policy change on the board member terms. We passed the resolution. You'll remember that we passed a resolution to set those board member terms at 6 years. We have a board policy that we need to bring in line with that resolution. So you'll see there that the policy is being proposed to make the change. Each member is elected for a term of service of 6 years. And then we are making a slight change in the vernacular in that second paragraph, moving from his, her to the holdover term. Again, this is designed just to bring the policy in line with the resolution that the board has already approved and passed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this board member length of term and holdovers. Everybody in favor say yes. Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 7.3 is the school choice policy. This begins on page 94. We had 3 policies that ASBA sent out for updates. We've already seen the first 2 as a part of the informational item. That was the parental leave policy. This is the third. It is the school choice policy. It's updating the language that is required by law. So this is one of those things where even if the board chose not to, or chose to oppose it, chose not to pass it, it's still going to happen in 90 days, whether we pass it or not. So this was one of those things that it just brings this policy in line with the rules and regs that have been written per the state law.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve this policy. Everybody in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 7.4 is a contract with Communicating Hands. Courtney is here to address this contract. If you have any questions about it, this is a contract that we have completed at least the last 2 years that I've been here.
I'd say 7 or 8 years.
Okay. It provides a service for our students who are deaf or hard of hearing. This is a service that we need to be able to provide if we have an absence or something like that. And so we're recommending that the board approve this contract as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the Communicating Hands contract. Everybody in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, I'm going to add, Courtney, I didn't tell you this, but I'm going to ask you to say a few things about this independent educational evaluation procedures. Yeah, just a few. Can you tell us real quick, just summarize, like, why are we looking at this tonight?
So really, it's a law in general where if a parent disagrees with an evaluation that we do, they have a right to request an independent evaluation, and we just didn't really have anything written to say what our procedure is, so that's what I wanted to do. But basically, any type of evaluation they disagree with, they can request an evaluation. If we feel like ours is sufficient and we decline that request, we would automatically go to a due process hearing.
So this is one of those things where parents have always had this ability to do this, to make this request. And if we don't have something in writing, this is the way I understood it from Courtney, if we don't have something in writing, then we're open to a lot of different interpretations. It's best to have something in writing. Courtney and her team have put this together. We're recommending, do what? Okay. So our attorney has looked at it. We're recommending that the board adopt these or allow us to adopt these procedures, and this would be how we would make these decisions going forward.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve this procedure. Everybody in favor say yes. Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, this evening you have in your packet, I believe it starts about page 105 on the district report to the public. So I just want to highlight a few things out of that, and then obviously if there's any questions, would be happy to address those. There we go. Okay, so just to kind of highlight, this is, I wanted to put on the cover page, what you have here is you have a picture that Abby took during CKH, and I wanted to highlight and kind of call out MD because they are doing a tremendous job. I mean, all of our schools are, but they're doing a tremendous job. You may have seen on Facebook the 100 phone calls that Coach Pills has made. He's called 100 kiddos and their parents this year to say that your kiddo's doing a great job.
I was sad to not see the teachers included in that little 100. Where's the teachers?
In the
Did
100?
you call some teachers, Kaylee?
I think he did. Yeah, he did. Don't want to take away from the kids, right?
They could have popped in that.
But yes, I do believe that he did call the mother of a couple of some teachers, and I think there was some embarrassment, but I think they probably really enjoy those kind of things as well. But I think everybody's doing a great job, but I kind of wanted to highlight them this year and really sort of what they've taken on as a building over there. You see the district mission and what we're trying to do. Did articulate our school board because that's always important in our update to the public. You have this is just a reminder that this is a report to the public about last year, encapsulates everything that we did last year from the start of school until the end of school. And so what you have on this demographics page or this at a glance page is really some key pieces of information as far as enrollment. I did try to give you the information as far as, we were a little up last year in our elementary enrollment. We were a little down in our MD enrollment. We were a little down in our junior high enrollment, but a little up in our high school enrollment. So you kind of see we're sort of all over the place as far as the four buildings goes. I did want to point out that last year, and again, we've gone over this before, that last year we were at 70% of kiddos economically disadvantaged. That's the free and reduced lunch rate. The year before that, it was 64%. So, I just want to remind the board that that's one of those places that we really worked hard to try to get that number to be more accurate based on what our families are going through. This year, just a quick reminder, that number has jumped again to 74%. Even though we didn't quite meet our goal of 75%, I have asked Victoria to go ahead and look into the CEP provision, which would allow us to feed all kiddos lunch for free. One of the things that when we look at that, when we have a recommendation, we'll come back to you. 74% would cause the district to have to supplement that cost a little bit. 75% is where we break even. I don't really know what that supplemental cost would be yet. So as we get that information, I'll certainly bring it to the board. But that was a goal that we had. I think I'm very proud of our administrators, our food service staff, to jump that from 64% to 70% to 74% in 2 years is really a feat. It doesn't happen very often, and that's a testament to the hard work that those folks have put in there. Student enrollment last year was from October 1 to October 1 was up about 3 kiddos. Keep in mind, though, that we're funded on the three-quarter average, not that number. And so our three-quarter average was 1888, I believe, for last year, and that's what we're funded on. I think this is something that we'll need to watch, so I'm going to bring it up. We had 298 total staff last year. Now, that is 20 additional staff than we had in 23-24. So I want you to notice something. We increased three kiddos and increased 20 staff members. That is something that I'm gonna have to keep an eye on, because you start looking at the cost of that. It doesn't really equal. Now, a lot of that is in providing student supports, classified staff, those kind of things, and so that is something we'll just have to keep an eye on. But that is something that is important to just take note of. So I wanted to point that out. You have the district enrollment. 1911 was 2025. That October 1 date. October 1 for this year is 1814. So that's down around 97 students this year. That is concerning. Most of them are homeschooled. We are not, I think when I calculated it, we've lost about, all in, we're down about 30 kids that are going out to other school districts. Most of what we're seeing, that drop is going to be in students who are choosing homeschool as an option instead of any school.
I was talking to the superintendent of another district. They echo the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to homeschool.
Right. The homeschool, microschool movement is really, right now, I think, taking a bite out of the public school student population across the state. I also wanted to include our district demographics. Just a note that we have increased 2% in our Hawaiian Pacific Islander. Last year we were at 13%. This year we're at 15%. That decrease, we've also seen a 2% decrease in our Caucasian students, dropping from 76% to 74%. Not a lot to read into that other than just factual information. I wanted to share with you, this is a holistic picture of our English language arts proficiency. Reading proficiency across the states, when you look at across the state from last year from 24 to 25, you're seeing a state increase of somewhere between 2 and 5%. We did see in our English language proficiency, now granted, as Christian said earlier, these are different cohorts of kids, but we saw a drop in all of our grade levels from one year to the next, except 4th grade and 10th grade. Our 4th grade students saw a growth of about 4%, and our 10th grade students saw a growth of about 6% in the English language arts proficiency range. Math proficiency, I wanted to share with you with the exception of 5th grade, across the state, the increase was around 1 to 5%. 5th grade had a decrease across the state. I don't really know what the reason is. This is just kind of the numbers as they're presented. Our 4th grade, we actually had an increase in our 4th grade percentage from 27 to 30%. And our 8th grade also saw an increase of about 4% from 17% to 21%. We do, as you see, we do have issues in our grade level. Christian kind of pointed out the geometry issues, algebra. I did look while we were talking, Chris, and the number of 8th graders who scored in the 8th grade, on the 8th grade test at level 4, which is our most proficient kids, right? The kids who are excelling, that was 4 kiddos. That's a challenge. That's a problem for us. I mean, that's something we're going to have to continue to dig into and figure out how do we get those numbers from 4 to something higher than that if we're going to offer Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So those are some things that we're going to have to continue to look at. Science proficiency, the state was up somewhere between 2 and 4% in every grade level. Science was actually our best area as a district. Fourth grade was up 6%. Fifth grade we went up 3%. Eighth grade 4%, and biology was 4%. So I think those are some little wins that we need to kind of go back to and say, okay, what are we doing I mean, if you look at it, fourth grade is up across all three of them, English, math, and science. I think our question becomes, what is fourth grade doing and how do we replicate that in third grade, fifth grade, and so on? What are the best practices that we're using in our areas that we are increasing on, and then how do we replicate those in other areas? One of the ways you do that is you do that by having collaborative conversations. You heard Bethany talk about that. You heard about Christian talk about that this evening. And so those are things that we're building upon. Those are things that take time to grow. I am confident that with time and with the effort and the strategic attention that our principals and our teachers are paying to those things, we will see those shifts in the coming years. Again, this AP test we're kind of already highlighted, and so I appreciate Christian doing that. The one thing I'll point out is we had 6 additional, so last year we had, in 2024 we had 12 students who were designated as AP scholars. Last year we had 18. So anytime we can grow those numbers of kiddos that are getting qualifying scores, so that is the number of kiddos who are getting multiple 3s, 4s, and 5s across several different tests. That's how you get to be an AP scholar. And so I think that's a testament to the rigor in those classrooms, what the kiddos are willing to do, and what the teachers are asking them to do. You have the fund balances for the end of fiscal year 25. Again, that's the end of the year balances, so that's what we look like in June. The enrollment, staffing, and expenditures. So everything is pretty stable as far as the expenditures go. Obviously we kind of looked at our enrollment and taking a hit on that. Again, I think there are things that we can continue to do to share the good things that are going on in Pocahontas. Why Pocahontas School District should be a choice. Yes, homeschool. There's going to be parents who are going to want to homeschool. There's going to be parents who want to choose private schools. But we think that we have a product that's worth putting right up there against the others. We have experiences that our kiddos can have. And so, I mean, I think that's important to us and what we're trying to do. I did want to highlight a few things on our district highlights. So last year, things that to just sort of highlight and pull out: implementation of a secondary ELA curriculum, that was mentioned earlier. Our salary schedule actually leads Northeast Arkansas for beginning teachers. If you are a fully certified beginning teacher, remember, you have $50,000 plus the $500 fully certified stipend. If you compare that to all the other Northeast Arkansas districts for a beginning certified teacher, we rank number 1. Now, where we struggle is struggling on making up that difference for our most senior teachers. So if you're a teacher with 15, 20 years of experience, that's where we need to work on in Pocahontas, and that's my intention with what we're going to put in place this year to address some of those kinds of things.
So the next step is still in place to try to pick up?
Yeah, in essence, phase 4 or phase 3B, remember, because we did talk about last spring where we put in place the education piece. The next step is to put in the experience piece. I do wonder if we're not going to have to sort of load up on that, because I mean, right now I think the experience stipends that we shared, that PPC looked at and tentatively said, yeah, we like that plan, are somewhere in that $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 range. I think we're going to have to look at that and say, what if we're really going to be competitive in Northeast Arkansas? for a teacher of 20 years, we may have to look at eventually getting to a $5,000 or $6,000 stipend on that.
Yeah.
We did do a retention and recruitment bonus last year of $1,400 at the beginning of the year. I didn't put it on here, but we also did a mid-year bonus of $500. So last year, our teachers and classified staff members, they received additional compensation, $1,900 last year on their $50,000 for teachers, their $50,000 or their classified by base. So I really do feel like we're making some good progress in this area. I do feel confident that this year we're going to be able to put more into the actual salary schedule so that less is being given as, in essence, you're trading the bonus for the salary schedule, but that's where we need to put it if we can anyway.
Does that bonus reflect on their retirement?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
So either way.
Either way, it's,
counting.
yes,
Okay.
either way it's counting. That is true. And when the state polls and each year they provide, like this year, they're going to provide the average salary for a Pocahontas teacher. All of that is going to be in the average salary as well.
It's
right?
just not a base.
It's just not on the base. That is correct. We dealt with the Alma Spikes property.
Question about that.
Yes.
Is the city going to maintain that property?
Yes. That was the
That's
agreement.
the agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when questions get asked about who's going to mow it, who's going to clean it up?
That is the
it's
city.
the city. Okay.
Yes.
It looks really good. I drove by the other day.
Okay.
It's really mowed and looks neat.
Well, that's why I was just curious of who to point people in.
Yes, that would be the city.
Okay.
Parks Department in particular.
Okay.
We did develop a district facilities plan, a 10-year facilities plan, as well as a strategic plan. We completed baseball and softball upgrades to the facilities over there, approved additional student activity options to include shooting sports for this year, and then we made upgrades to the junior high office.
I have another question.
Yeah,
It's a Craig question, maybe.
okay.
Are we gonna also do, we said baseball, softball, but are we also gonna come back on softball and make it match baseball?
As far as deciding, that's something we can look at.
I think we should. I mean, I think we should. We made baseball look real nice, we gotta do it for softball too.
Yeah.
There's just a lot newer, and
Yeah.
that's the
I
guy
just-
who was on this, for this budget, kind of what the board agreed to, is that we can get by that, because it gets a much newer facility, that's something.
I struggle with this district being pieced together. Like, a chain link fence being black here. Stop it, Brent. This is why a female needs to be on this board with me.
I'm a little OCD, so I agree.
A black chain link fence here, a silver chain link fence here, a black and white baseball stuff, a white soft, like it drives me crazy. Because stop. Because we are band-aiding stuff instead of making
Right.
it uniform, and I don't like it
Right, and those are things that,
for supporting.
well, I think those are things, I want to go that direction as well. That's why we've had conversations like in other areas about the branding and making sure
Yeah.
everybody, and so those are additional pieces that need to be added to that as we're going down that path.
So we can add your accent color to the stadium, but not the uniform.
We're gonna add it, I'm bringing it back up in the spring. Black's coming back. I'm gonna count how many schools in Northeast Arkansas have a third uniform color, and I'm gonna give y'all a big old presentation.
Okay. I'm in. Couple of things, implementations for this year, just some things that we're working on right now, or having the hopper, capturing kids' hearts in every classroom. We've already started that. We do plan to review the elementary K-6 ELA curriculum and have a recommendation for the board in the spring. This is something that I've been talking with our East kids about. One of the things that I've been really thinking about is how do we help parents be more of an advocate for our kiddos and help be a partner in the ELA and the math and science world. So one of the things that we've been talking about is the creation of a short-range broadcasting network to link parents with high-quality ELA and math best practices for use in the car and home. So in essence, what that would look like is creating a short-range broadcasting opportunity that as parents are sitting in their car here, and as parents are sitting in their car waiting to pick up their kids at the elementary school, they can tune their radio to whatever broadcast frequency we're on, and then we would have a short 2 to 3 minute loop on things that parents can do with their kids on the ride home from the elementary school to the house. Right? Things like asking kids to use 3 silly words to describe what they see outside, right? Where they're building their vocabulary, where we're trying to help kids describe, use descriptive words, things like that. And so that's something that we've been looking at. The East kids are actually helping with that. Right, this is a project that I went to Destiny and said I want some East kids to help me figure this out, and they've put together a list. We've got some things on order, and they will be helping us to program every month the loop so that parents just pull up, they tune their radio to 99.9 or whatever it is we choose, and now they're hearing from Pocahontas School District, right? The principals are using a building-wide classroom walkthrough model at each campus, and it's the same model. We have a collaborative team structure going across all campuses, and district-wide iReady implementation in grades 3 through 12, because I'll remind the board, this is the first year that we're doing that at the elementary school. Last year we did something different. This year we're bringing the elementary school online with all the other schools in the district. Next steps for us is to continue working to educate our community on our facility needs, further implement activities and structures that seek to build a foundation for learning for all students. Really, that's thinking about what are we doing with preschool and how are we aligning our preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, those kind of things. Again, that's kind of said that in another way, reinforce those learning opportunities for our youngest kiddos. And then I mentioned earlier that we are evaluating the district's opportunity to provide those free meals through the CEP process. The current rate is 74%. I was really hoping for 75 to 76%, but I am interested in what's the dollar amount we would have to supplement, and it may be worth it to us as a district, as a board, to go ahead and provide that and just supplement that so that every kiddo can have free lunch. Any questions on anything that I shared there?
I hate to be negative, but man, when I got on the board 3 or 4 years ago, my hope was that I would get off the board with better test scores. It seems to be going the opposite way. I feel like we are not focused enough on our test scores. We talk about sports, we talk about buildings, we talk about things that, uniforms. Yeah, we rarely talk about these test scores, and they're terrible. I mean, 13%, 21%, 21%, 21%, or 1 out of 5 students. If I hired 5 kids to teach them how to build portable sheds, at the end of 12 years, only 1 of them could do it proficiently enough, I would be a failure. I would let off everyone who's training. I mean, I know the teachers are striving to do their best and the principals, but something is happening. We've got to figure that out. And
Well, I feel like 2 key pieces to put in place. I guess Lord's here, she's going. They added the ELA curriculum and the math curriculum. I think that's the first step to.
well, 2 years ago, we were tracking in the right direction, and now we're back down below where
We also had the
we've
state
ever
in our
been.
building 2 years ago, didn't we?
Yes, we need to, instead of visiting,
And we weren't
gymnasiums,
using
we need to go to schools that are succeeding and figure out what's going on there. What do we need to do that's like them? I don't understand how we can be so far below the state average. I mean, I can
Okay, well,
understand.
so I'm gonna put something out about a nearby school. And I say nearby because I'm not gonna point fingers at anybody, but I know that I've been told by parents that these kids are being drawn in specifically practicing this Atlas test multiple times a year and practicing to this test, and they're teaching to this test, and then certain kids are being called out in
their current classroom, they have an A in the class, but they're being pulled and saying, oh, you didn't do good enough on the test, so here, we're gonna work with you one-on-one, even though they have an A in this class, because this school is very focused on getting this test score up, and I get that, but you still have to teach the stuff now, like, in the moment, the stuff that we're teaching in the moment, and I feel like a lot of schools are very focused on this test score, and a test score, I feel like, does not, it just shows that you
But we're
take
graded
tests
on
back.
test scores. We're graded on test scores.
But we also have 1,800, 1,900 students compared to a class of 12 kids. So I think there's a big demographic
Yeah, I don't
difference,
have
too.
the answer. It's just we need to focus more on this kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't have the answer. But you know, I was hoping to give it 3 or 4 years and see the upward trend, but it's going the opposite way, you know? And so,
I don't think you'll find an educator in this district who says it's going the right direction. I think there are a lot of challenges that we are working through. You know, I don't know that anybody has, quote unquote, the answer. I know there are best practice things that we need to put in place, and I feel like we are working through those things.
How old is the IRA system? That hasn't been implemented very long either, right?
Yeah, last year was the first year that we did it in any building, and we were doing it in the MD, the junior high, and the high school.
And this standardized test is new too.
This is the second year for this
statewide,
particular
everyone's going to
test.
be new to it statewide, and so I compare it to the state.
I know, but I'm just saying the last 2 years, we've been at IRA. We now have a K through 12 English curriculum. We now have a K through 12 math curriculum. I think those are things that are
You gotta catch up.
sending in a direction because we were behind, so now we're playing catch up. Now that you got these tools, I mean, you got to give everybody a year or so to learn how to use them appropriately and then implement them to the kids. And I'll still go back to this, you know, this mother's gone too. You know, my hat's off to her. I don't know how you get a junior high kid to care about a test that doesn't matter. I mean, because how accurate is that Atlas test? I question the accuracy of it because I just wonder how many of those kids are just going in and clicking buttons. And that's, in essence, there's nothing we can do as a school district to prevent that. All we can do is do things to promote them to give us your best effort. So it's kind of like, I've always said this about high school sports. Grown men's livelihoods depend on children participating and functioning in the sport.
I love your idea on-
Same way with the testing. Our test scores rely on these kids.
Yeah. I love your idea you said earlier about rewarding, you know, in fact, I typed up something, you know, as far as sending them to Silver Dollar City.
Yeah.
I polled all my kids a couple of years ago on what they would like, and everyone had a different answer for different grades, you know, but,
Sure.
you know, I'd say the top 20% of growth, like every grade, the top 20 students that grew the most, not the ones who had the best grade on the test score, but the ones who grew from the previous year, the top 20 get to go to Silver Dollar City for each grade for the top 5 or 6 grades. You know, you don't want to take elementary school to Silver Dollar City, but you can take the top 6 grades or whatever.
Oh, I'm definitely all for.
We're talking $18,000 would do it, and I mean, I would donate towards that, or even all of it, whatever, to get this done, because I was thinking free ice cream. You know, they used to do the pizza in when we were kids, the little punch cards with pizza. You get a good grade, and you get a punch on your card, and you get a free pizza after a while. But if that's the issue, we need to encourage these students to do good on this test. If that's the common denominator, I'm sure it's a multiple different reasons for this, but maybe we need to start with the test scores. Maybe we say we're going to encourage you to do well in the test score. You know.
Well, I agree. I mean, I like a rewarding system. Another thing I thought I had just because you look here presenting was, I think the biggest influence in that grade level, junior high, well, and high school, is peer to peer. How do you get the peers to push the other peers to do well? Because you know, every grade has good students that are that's just who they are. They're known for, you know, for lack of a better word, they're the nerdy kids. How do you incorporate them? Because I think when a peer encourages you to do something at that age level, means it's a lot more meaningful than one of us as a parent or an adult or a teacher or an administrator saying that to them. So I mean, maybe that can be something that can be incorporated in the reward system.
And for me, I'm going to go back to the things that I know work are going to be building up, you know, that student voice, agency, having those kiddos have ownership on what they're doing. And I mean, sure, we can give them, you know, take them to Silver Dollar City. Those are great things. I think if we want true, like, lifestyle change as far as a district goes, it's really about how do we empower kids to be the owners of this process, right? We're right back, I'm just gonna tell you, we are right back to where we used to be with ACTAP, right? I don't know if you all know what that is, but ACTAP was the test prior to Atlas, prior to Aspire, right? Was the end of course exams, which is sort of what we're back to, and it was called ACTAP. And what happens, that was when I was, that's when I came back into the state, and what we saw in the building that I was in is kids were not answering, for example, open response questions, right? They'd look at the open response question and go, yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't know how, I can't, I'm not even going to attempt. Guess what? The open response questions that our kiddos take now in 3rd grade, they look at it and go, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm not doing it. Right? The only thing that fixes that, in my opinion, is student voice, empowering those kiddos, perseverance, right? That's what you want out of employees. You want employees that when they run into a problem, they don't go, yeah, I can't do that. I'll just wait for my boss. No, you want kiddos and workers who are going to strive to figure out how to solve the problem, right? So you're right. It's a myriad of things. It's how do we start in 3rd grade to make sure that 3rd graders are on grade level. If a 3rd grader is not on grade level, then why are we surprised that a 4th grader, that kid when he becomes a 4th grader is not on grade level, right? Because it gets harder. So we would expect the 3rd grade to be the most number of kiddos who are on grade level. And then it gets harder, and it gets harder. The older kids get, the more it takes to intervene and get them to grade level. What I can do with a kindergartner for 15 minutes takes 2.5 hours with a 4th grader. That's educational research 101, right? So we have to continue to work on and start with those kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders, and then we're going to see those reverberations up through the system.
Well, and it takes, like Chad said, and I agree, it takes parental involvement. We got to have parents that back this up to them.
Which is why we're trying to do some things like the short, you know, the new radio piece on what that was, to give them, because I sort of feel like if parents knew how to do it, they would. Right? So we have to educate them. We have to train them on here's some little things that you can do in the next 5 minutes to help your kiddo get a leg up. Build vocabulary. It's as simple as building vocabulary. I mean, I've had conversations with high school kids and I've used the term like there's ramifications for what we do, and they look at me like, huh? And I applaud them. What does ramifications mean? If they don't know that, at least they're willing to ask. But that reminded me that, oh yeah, I've got to, as the teacher in me, when I use that term, I also have to say things like consequences or to put it into some frame of reference for them, right?
Maybe you need to do a superintendent word of the day.
Maybe. Ramifications. But no, I don't think that's, Chad, I don't think it's negative. I think it's accurate, right? We do need to continue to work on making sure that our students are learning at grade level at every grade. Okay, you have the student transfers. Well, yeah, you have the student transfers in front of you. And then there is one item on the personnel agenda. I believe it's on that, it's going to be like page 132.
121, 122 maybe?
Yeah.
Can we ask questions about that without revealing?
Yeah.
Will we have a sub?
Yes.
For that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have a sub. There will be a sub in that classroom.
For that length of time.
For that
Okay.
length of time, yes. So you have that, it is a request for catastrophic. I do feel like it meets the qualifications set out by policy. I am recommending that the board approve the catastrophic, up to the 30 days of catastrophic leave for that individual on that request. You know, go ahead.
We have a motion and a second to approve the catastrophic leave on this request. Everybody in favor say yes. Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
That is all I have for this evening, unless there's anything else.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.